Hey guys, welcome back to Miah's workshop. I'm out in the window greenhouse today. This is where we're going to be working. I've got a few things to do. It's a short punch list of just some simple stuff, and then one that's a little more complicated. I've gone over this list before, but we'll go over it real quick again. I've got to finish running the water. It needs just the pipe run. It's a PEX line around the outside to this back workbench where I'm going to have to put in a spigot and a hose for Jessica to be able to water seedlings inside. I've got to fix the broken glass in the French door. I'm going to try and identify any other spots where we're losing heat. We're still having some issues trying to maintain heat inside of here. And then the last thing, along the lines of the heating thing, I've got this shop heater that I actually bought when I was in Arkansas. I was going to put it in the window greenhouse we built there. Ended up never getting to it. Brought it here with us. I'm going to try and install it here. And it's going to be kind of a situational thing. It's a pretty powerful heater. So it'll be more like you can turn it on, bring the greenhouse up to temperature. Then once you bring the greenhouse up to temperature, you probably end up turning it off because it's an electric heater. I will have to run a dedicated wire to it from the 200 amp service that's on the back of the well house. But that's really not that complicated. The well house is actually pretty close. It's within like 30 or 40 feet. So heating issues, and then honestly the more complicated, bigger project for the window greenhouse is the Mosaic table. This was on the list of things to do back in May before I had to step away for a little bit. So we're going to get that done before the major part of garden season and seed starting gets here, so Jessica can have it and use it this season. I honestly have had so much time to think about that particular project and how to accomplish it that I don't think it'll actually take me that long. I've kind of just settled in on what I'm going to do. I think it'll be fairly straightforward. So we'll just see how long it takes. Anyways, you guys are going to be along for the ride. However, to get started on any of that stuff, the first thing I have to do is kind of clean up inside the greenhouse. And then once we get everything cleaned up and kind of situated, I'll get my tools, come in here, and we'll get started on the plumbing, fixing the glass, identifying any of the heat issues that we can fix. Because the way that I'm building it, I'm actually going to be using black iron pipe like we did for the plant hanger and all the shelves in our house for the legs. So I'm probably going to build that first, get it painted while it's drying. During the day tomorrow, I'll be working on the plumbing and the other stuff. And then whenever that's done drying, we'll kind of bounce back to the table. But in the end, the goal is to get all of this accomplished and then hand the greenhouse back to Jessica for seed starting and planting and gardening season. Let's get started. Okay, so we've got it all nice and organized. Well, not like organized how it's going to stay, but organized to do the jobs. So that's the plywood and the plexiglass that I'm going to use for the Mosaic table. There's where the water line comes in. I'm going to run it along this back wall, turn, go behind this shelf, And then probably put the spigot coming out somewhere right in here with a hose wrap or holder. And then that way I'll have enough hose here to be able to get to all sides of the seedling shelves. All right, so that's gonna do it for tonight. I'll be back in the morning. Well, it'll be late morning because I've got a chiropractor appointment. But as soon as I get back from that, we'll get started on the rest of this. Like I said, I'm just going to be bouncing around to the different jobs that I'm doing. Feels straightforward enough. I'm excited to get this done for Jessica. I know that she's been extremely patient, waiting for me to get back around to finishing these details of the window greenhouse. So I'm really, really happy to do it. And I'm also really happy to see the mosaic table finished. It does mean a lot to Jessica. It means a lot to me also. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Now that we've got everything cleaned up and I've got daylight, I'm going to get started on actually assembling the leg portion of the mosaic table. I did go ahead and move these seed starting shelves up out of the way so I could work on that back wall, getting the plumbing in. But like I said, I'm going to start on the assembly of the black iron pipe legs for the mosaic table so I can go ahead and paint them. I'm going to spray paint them a flat black. The reason I'm going to do that first is so that way it can be drying, and then I'll come in here while that's drying and go ahead and get the plumbing knocked out, and then we'll be able to proceed with the table and the door and the other small stuff we got to do. I guess it's a couple days later. It got really cold here. We had a cold front come through, the same cold front that dropped ice and snow all over the Midwest. Made it to South Carolina. We got down to about 15 degrees, which is pretty cold for this area, but it was way too cold to work outside. I couldn't even work in the greenhouse. It wasn't even warm enough in there. I think it was around 40 degrees, but it was still just too cold to be working with stuff with your fingers. So we're back at it today. It's gonna be, I think the low tonight is 60 and it's gonna be 70 degrees tomorrow and raining. So that's just how it goes here. But with the rain coming in, I wanted to go ahead and get the outside connection to the water line hooked up. That way tomorrow I can finish running the inside stuff and work on the table while it's raining. So let's jump into the outside water line. So I actually thought I hit record and I did not, and I missed the part of just digging this out. But essentially, this is the water line coming to the greenhouse. This is where we're going to make the connection in that box down there where those valves are. One thing that did happen when we were setting this particular set of 3 valves that we've got in this box is when we were setting them up, I mean, we did all of this water line all at the same time, but I guess as it settled, the valve stem, which we pre-built as we were running the line, so that way we just slid it on, and it's 3 valves in a row. But as that was drying, apparently it tilted down. So like it's kind of pointing down towards the bottom of the box. So I ended up having to cut a pretty good size hole out of the side rather than just coming straight through, because I'm gonna have to do a combination of 2 45s to be able to kind of angle it up high enough to get to the PEX and to keep it from having to dig such a deep trench to get the connection in. I don't think it'll have any issues. I've saved the piece of plastic that I cut off, that once I'm done finished running it, I'll figure out some way to kind of block the dirt from piling back up in there, because I mean, obviously when I fill this back in, I don't want the dirt to just fall in and bury the valve stem, the shutoff valve. But I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. If anyone's asking, yes, the PEX line is a lot more shallow than the main line, but honestly, I've had a couple of lines run just 4 inches under the ground here and have never had any issues with them freezing. There might be a rare occurrence like the other night when it got down to 15 that they might have frozen, but I mean, honestly, I've never had any issues, and the frost line here is just really non-existent. But of course, there's always a chance that in a later video I may be coming back and saying, hey, yeah, that was a problem, but my gut tells me that probably not. Like I said, we've been here long enough and have experienced enough of these winters to kind of know what to expect during the winter. So anyways, I'm going to go in here and put together essentially all the connections, the 245s. We're gonna have to convert from 1.5 inches to 3/4 inch, and then from 3/4 inch PVC to PEX to be able to hook up. I'm gonna do that indoors, and then we're just gonna go out, clean everything up and glue it, let it set, and then we'll hook up the PEX line. So I was going to wrap up everything for outside. In case you were wondering what that material was, I was wrapping around that connection from the PVC to the PEX. It's a shark bite connection, and anytime you put a shark bite connection underground, they advise you to wrap it with this special kind of tape. Essentially, it's going to keep all the ground moisture and dirt off of the connection, which is going to keep it from failing and coming apart. So anytime that you're burying shark bite connections, which most people don't, but I had to convert from PVC to PEX, and that's usually the only way you can do that. And so I went ahead and, I mean, I've kept this because I've used shark bite connections before for fast repairs on water lines that have broken in the garden. So I've had a roll of this, and obviously you don't use it a whole lot. So anyways, if you're going to use any kind of shark bite connection underground, make sure you wrap it. Okay, I've got everything installed. I just turned the water onto the line to make sure that there's no leaking. So there is pressure on it. Don't see anything. Obviously, you know if there was a water leak, you'd be spraying out or something would be going wrong. Everything seems to be good. There is going to be some air in the line, so I'm going to let that out and just make sure that the water's flowing good right here. I've got a bucket to catch it. There's the air. All right, so far everything still looks pretty good. I don't see anything dripping or spraying anywhere, which is a good sign. Plumbing makes me nervous. So I've got our finished product of the table legs that we put together and painted at the beginning of this video. It's obviously dry, ready to go. We're not going to get to actually building the table in this video. I'm just going to kind of go over the different materials I got for it, what I'm thinking as far as putting it together, and then we'll actually build it on the next video. So everyone who's wondering or doesn't know what the Mosaic table is, this is the Mosaic table. A friend of ours in California custom did it for us and had it mailed to us. We've had it for a few years. We've been waiting for the right time to be able to utilize it and put it in the right space, which, you know, this greenhouse was specifically built for it. So I'm really excited to actually get this displayed and usable for Jessica and also for myself. It's very meaningful with the butterflies and tiger lilies. Both of those are representative of people that I've lost. Butterflies are for my mom, and the tiger lilies are for my firstborn son, who was actually born before Miah. So this is a very meaningful table for both me and Jessica. And so we didn't want to rush getting it put together and getting it put out and have something happen to it, because you can't really replace something that's sentimental. And so we've just been patient. But I think I've got my head around what I'm going to do to get this usable in this space. So I've got, like I said, I got the table legs ready. These are black iron pipe. They're painted black. It's fairly sturdy. I'm also going to screw those to the ground once we actually know exactly where it's going to be. So right here, I've got a 4x8 sheet of plexiglass. It's a 1/4 inch thick. Yeah, 1/4 inch thick. And then I got a 3/4 inch thick sheet of finished grade plywood. Now the reason I've got the plywood is because I'm going to add that to the back side of the Mosaic table here. And the reason I'm doing that is that to secure the tabletop to the table legs, so these 1-inch straps, which will go around the black iron pipe and secure to the table. And that's going to hold the table to the leg system. I am adding the 3/4 inch sheet of plywood. One, so that way if Jessica puts something heavy on there, that one, the pressure of the weight, like as it flexes across the table, it's going to be able to distribute it better with an extra sheet of plywood, because you don't want the board that this is built on to flex at all, because if it flexes, it's going to pop the grout that's in there and it's going to mess up the table. The other reason why is that to screw into this and have enough grip on it to really secure the table to the table legs, I really wanted to have a lot of thickness, or at least more thickness than what's on there. So this is going to be, I think this is a 1/2 inch piece of plywood. It may be thicker than that. I actually don't know for sure. I have to take these transport strips off, and then I'll get a better idea of actually how thick this is. But even if this is not real thick, as far as the board that she put this on, the 3/4 inch plywood is going to be plenty. And I'm going to use some construction glue between the two sheets of plywood to glue them together. And then the screws holding the straps will actually penetrate both pieces of wood. So that should be fairly secure. Now the plexiglass is actually going to sit on top of the table, because Jessica's going to be using it for like a potting table, be out here in the greenhouse. So we were trying to think, well, how do we protect this but still make it visible? And I played around with the idea, or at least I thought about it for a while, of doing like a clear resin, but I've never done clear resin before. And so that may be something that I go to in the long run and do like a rework of the table where I, you know, can clear resin it, which would be a better solution. But if you mess that up, then it's ruined. Like there's no going back. So if I mess up the resin and it becomes cloudy and you can't actually see the table, like there's no going back and fixing it. And so I'm going to practice on that once I have my shop built and get good at it and feel comfortable with it. And then I might come back and do like a clear resin pour over the top of the table. So in order for us to be able to utilize it in this space sooner than when my shop's built and I feel comfortable doing it, we're going to use that sheet of plexiglass. Now to secure the plexiglass, I'm gonna have to take these transport strips off, which are these like 1/4 inch pieces of strips that are screwed in with some Phillips head screws. Okay, so when we come back on the next video, I will be getting the measurements of the actual table. So I'll take the transport strips off and get the true dimensions. I'll cut my plywood to fit that. I'll probably go ahead and put that plywood on the legs and secure the table to that with the glue and the screws, so that way it's secured in place. Once I have that, I can go ahead and get measurements for the trim, go ahead and mill the trim, get it ready, go ahead and install it. Once I have the trim installed, I can get the true measurements for the plexiglass, cut it, and install it. Once that's done, table's ready, and Jessica will be ready to rock and roll for seed starting. And that'll bring us almost 80% finished with what we had intended to finish for the greenhouse before moving on to the next thing. So the only other thing that we haven't addressed yet is trying to find ways to stop the heat loss within the greenhouse or adding supplemental heat. Here in the next day or two, I'm gonna pull that heater that I've got out of storage, kind of look at what its specifications are, how much power it's gonna need to pull, and see if that's gonna be a feasible option to run the power to the greenhouse. Like I said before, it's really not that far to get to power. It's right there. If you can see it behind me, the well house is right there. There's a 200 amp service right on the back of the well house. So it's not real far, but again, this is just gonna be a numbers game, and then do I feel like it's worth that amount of work to get invested? Now, as far as heat retention, I've got some ideas. You know, we've got single sheets of plexiglass blocking these gables, and on the outside, everything was kind of built flush. So I'm thinking that I may get some more sheets of plexiglass and go to the outside and cut some more sheets to match the same shapes that we've got here. Go ahead and secure those to the outside, which will give me a space in between the outside temperature air and the inside air, which should help prevent heat loss between those really thin, like I said, 1/4 inch thick sheets of plexiglass. And then I've got a couple other small ideas, like, so if you look up at the ridge, I don't know if you can see it on this camera, but where the tan pieces that fit up underneath the roofing material, you know, when we put those in, we put butyl tape on the ridges and the hats and the seats, which is the seats is the low part, the hat is the high part. However, like, I don't know for sure that all of that got made contact and sealed. So I have a sneaking suspicion that we're losing some heat through the ridge. And so what I'm thinking about doing is running some clear silicone, and it'll be fairly tedious, but literally just hitting all of the seats and the ridges, or seats and the hats of the roof on both sides with a strip of clear silicone. Like I said, it would be kind of tedious, but at this point, like, you know, I've sealed all the eaves and stuff. I've done, you know, as much as I can't find any other thing that's not the ridge or the plexiglass that why this would be losing as much heat as it is. So I'm going to just try those two things, and hopefully that'll fix it. And like I said, you know, we may end up doing that larger heater also. We're just gonna have to do a little bit more investigating. All right, well, that's gonna wrap this one up. I appreciate you coming along. I'm very excited about the things that are coming in the future. Obviously the house build is getting real close, so super excited about that. But I'm also very excited to get the greenhouse fully finished out for Jessica and be able to see her flourish this gardening season out of here. So again, thank you, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.